The chair now recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Obernolte.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I'd like to thank Chairman Guthrie and the Energy and Commerce Committee for having this hearing on a topic that's very close to my heart and something I think is of immense national consequence to our economy and our country. Mr. Wang, it's great to see you again. In your testimony, you were talking about the steps that must be taken to ensure U.S. continued leadership in AI. And I was very thankful that you had some very specific asks of Congress and the administration. And one of those was that we adopt a regulatory framework that's sector-specific and use case-based. And I wanted to ask you, could you elaborate a little bit on what you mean by that and how we would go about enacting it?
Yeah, so ultimately, what we need as a country is to ensure that from a technology development standpoint, that we do not slow down. We need to ensure that AI as a technology moves forward as quickly as possible, and that includes embracing the technology and ensuring that we have room to innovate. But the application of that technology towards certain sectors or certain specific use cases in the economy are areas where I think there probably needs to be some level of regulation or at least some level of guardrails in place. These could be industries like the medical industry, the pharmaceutical industry, the financial services industry, and others. Industries that already have some degree of regulation to protect consumers and protect Americans. We can, in many cases, we can utilize those same provisions and those same regulations, and then there might be some cases where there are some gaps.
Right. The Artificial Intelligence Task Force in the House issued a report in December that made exactly that same recommendation. And I think the exact finding was that we regulate tools, not outcomes, not tools. And AI is a very powerful tool, but is a tool. If we focus our regulation on outcomes, then we can capture all the different uses of the tool. You also talked about the need for a single federal standard for regulation. And Congressman Dunn was on the way to asking you about that and unfortunately ran out of time. So I wanted to give you a little bit of space to explain what you meant by that.
Yeah, so as an AI company, and I think what we ultimately want as a country is to ensure that that our industry can continue developing advanced AI systems and continue driving American leadership. The worst case scenario for us is actually that there are 50 different, that every state adopts a different regulatory standard, and we have to operationally comply with 50 different regulatory standards. I mean, it quickly becomes impossible, especially as you consider, in a lot of cases, the way that we develop AI is we develop, one large model, and then we start applying that model in all sorts of different industries and use cases and jurisdictions. And so we need, as an industry and as a country, one clear federal standard, whatever it may be, but we need clarity as to one federal standard and have preemption to prevent this outcome where you have 50 different standards. Just to put a finer point on this, we do not want our American companies spending all their time figuring out how to comply with every state's standards, whereas the Chinese models and the Chinese companies will just race ahead on innovation.
Right. That's another conclusion that we completely agree with you. In the task force report, we had a whole chapter on this issue. And let me just point out the fact that since then, just in the last couple of months, we have, at last count, 958 bills pending in state legislatures across the country on the topic of AI regulation. And I'm sure it's going to grow to be several thousand just in this year. If we allow this regulatory landscape that complicated to exist, I actually think that scale is probably well suited to that because you've got the legal sophistication to deal with that. But who does not have that sophistication are two people at Caltech. See what I did there? Not MIT, Caltech. Trying to start the next scale. So I think we have a limited amount of legislative runway to be able to get that problem solved before the states get too far ahead. And one last question for you, Mr. Wang. You had mentioned the need to establish a national AI data reserve. Could you talk a little bit about why that's so important?
If we, ultimately, national security is the responsibility of the government. And our government's data, particularly our DoD's data and our data relating to national security, is so vital and valuable to ensuring that our AI systems are able to defend our country, defend our men and women, and ultimately ensure national security, broadly speaking. So the necessity of the National AI Data Reserve is so that, in 5 to 10 years, we're not sitting here seeing how advanced the Chinese systems for defense and intelligence and cyber warfare and other systems are, because they have an integrated data approach versus our systems, which would be dramatically behind.
Well, thank you very much for your testimony. Sorry I didn't get to the other witnesses. I have a million questions. We'll submit that for the record. I yield back.